Hi, good morning.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
We're talking about compassion and awareness and relationship. We were talking primarily about the animal-human relationship, and we actually received quite a number of emails and questions about human-to-human relationship.
We're bringing that kind of Saturnian quality of wanting to have a precise, clear perspective
Mhm,
to a realm where that can be very challenging.
mhm,
That sort of Piscean realm of
mhm,
feeling and the waters of emotion. But really, what we're engaging with here is the flow of life.
mhm.
So the Piscean realm is an opportunity to engage in an intimate experience of, you know, call it what you will, cosmic flow,
Mhm,
divine flow,
mhm.
or the deep inner soul realms of flow. The sort of negative propaganda about Saturn is that it's this
I
harsh,
know.
harsh taskmaster
It can
thrashing
be.
you.
Yeah.
Not a very pleasant experience, but
No, but it isn't really, thank you for bringing that up. Saturn, I've had to learn to love Saturn, but the great teacher, yes. Do we have lessons to learn? Sure. Learning them every day. Thank you very much. So, anyway, go on. I just thank you for bringing that up.
absolutely. So yeah, I think the opportunity with Saturn entering Pisces, and again, this is a direct entry, unlike the typical scenario where the retrograde Saturn back and forth motion across that 0 point can create some ambiguity. Obviously, we had that back in March of 2020,
Yeah.
right? Here we are, COVID, global pandemic. What's
Mhm.
going on? What should we do? What should we not do? The information realm had a lot of unclarity
Right.
and very, directly contradictory information.
Mhm.
Not that we've necessarily come to any clarity around
Well,
that whole issue after,
there's that. Yeah. Let me just say something real quick so people understand what you're saying. So sometimes when it's like Pluto's going to be going over the 0 point back and forth all year, Saturn is making a just right into Pisces. And I believe you're correct. I was going to check it out real quick, but when Saturn was going into Capricorn, I'm just going to look to see when that was real quick. That was 2017. And then when it was going into Aquarius, like you were saying, there was a back and forth in 2020.
it entered in March and then it
Mhm.
went back in the
Yes.
summer. And then
Yeah.
by
And
December, it had,
that's challenging,
yeah.
but it's also meant to deepen our awareness of something.
Mhm.
And I was always saying back then, Saturn in Aquarius is going to help us figure things out. Like, what's the form that's going to help the people of the world? And the pandemic had just started, really, when Saturn went into its first entry into Aquarius. So, anyway, we could talk about that, but we're not there anymore. We're in Saturn and Pisces now. So now,
Yes, we do have not only a direct station here with Saturn entering Pisces, but also it's going to be coming back. Denise was mentioning the 0 point. It's not going to retrograde back into
Mhm.
Aquarius, but it's going to come all the way back to half a degree
Yeah,
of the 0 point.
yeah.
So understanding that sort of initiation into a new realm, which is what the
Mhm.
0 point is about. I mean, there are arguments back and forth around the zodiac and whether
Yeah.
the actual star realms that are governed by these areas are still in effect. So we'll avoid the esotericism of astrological controversy. But let's just accept the premise that we're entering new territory here.
Yes.
And it's a territory where there's big energy that isn't necessarily expressed in a way that we can clearly access,
Mm.
right? So think about being out in the ocean and a mist comes and you've been navigating by the stars, but the stars are no longer visible. And so how do you find your way?
That's a
Um,
beautiful analogy, by the
yeah.
way. Yeah.
And Saturn is there. Well, we've got the compass and we've got these instruments and we've got radar and we've got, all these detection devices, but ah, somehow they're stopped working.
Okay, so here's
They
this.
were working
Yeah,
really well in that other place, that
right.
Aquarian, zone of
Yeah,
ocean,
they,
but
they
now
were
we're in
working
the
well,
Piscean
right? Or
realm
they
and,
were getting to, it seemed like they were working well. Can
or it's
I
the Bermuda
interrupt your,
Triangle and the compass is,
yeah.
spinning.
Okay, so I'm going to interrupt your analogy just for a moment because
Yeah,
you gave me the opening for my Saturn and Pisces to share something.
please.
David's absolutely right. It is like I'm sailing along, the mist comes in. That could send someone into a panic if their instruments are in the Bermuda Triangle and there's nothing to go on. But this
Or
is
if you're in the ocean where there are icebergs
right. Well, yeah,
or
that too.
other things
But
that you
here's
can
the
run into.
thing. Here's the thing about Saturn and Pisces. I immediately go to, well, this is no different than the mists of Avalon. I just ask the mists to part, and they do. And that I think also brings in some of the Pluto energy as well. It's like, where's the magic here? How am I going to navigate this time? So Saturn is actually asking us to ask the questions. How am I going to do this? At least that's my take on it. So my Saturn in Pisces is like, yeah, I get it. You're absolutely right. And then how do I ask for those missed apart, instrument free? What do I need to do? What is the magic I need to cultivate within myself that's going to allow that? Because the mist didn't part every time. When you wanted to get to Avalon, the mist only, I know, 872 pages. I know. The mist, it's a good book though. The mists only part when you are in tune. And what does that mean?
So yes, life, if we're really paying attention, right? That's the Saturnian element, is a magical, mystical realm. Not
Right.
just when, we're in the Pisces zone of experience,
Right.
but in truth, if we have a mystic's eye, a magical perspective about our human experience, we are in a mystical, magical
All the time.
experience in this human journey of life. And we, at times, have a tendency to we fly on instruments, right? We're in the cockpit and we just kind of, sit back and let the machine drive itself. I think the challenge and the gift and the opportunity of this time is we don't get to fly on autopilot. It's not necessarily that it's a dangerous place. It's just that there's a lot available if we're willing to pay attention. The ruler of Pisces is Jupiter.
Originally, just to not
Right, in
confuse
the
people.
classical
Yes.
astrology. So it's not just mist on the windshield and I just need to turn on the wipers and clear the windshield. This is dense, thick journey of experience. And yes, you can fly on instruments and pass on through and maybe encounter some turbulence along the way and make it to the other side, and that's fine if that's how you want to live life. But if you are willing to engage with courage,
Yes.
with some willingness to put some energy into making the effort to see clearly, to feel, to sense, to experience your life with more attention and appreciation to its richness, really allowing the full depth of experience to arise, which takes some patience.
Yeah.
You're not going to necessarily get quick answers in this Piscean realm. But if you're willing to remain present, so really the opportunity of Saturn in Pisces is engaged presence.
Yeah. I like that. That's a
And
great phrase.
and a willingness to, if you want to say this, suffer, but
I'm not into suffering.
suffer the lack of clarity.
How about weather? How about weather the lack of
Weather,
clarity?
okay, so weather's a good metaphor, but I think also it's the lack of clarity right now is just simply where you're at.
Yeah.
Like any learning process, like any growth process,
Yeah.
things have their natural unfoldment.
Yes.
You can't simply, shout at the universe to demand that it, give you the answers to all of your questions immediately. I mean, you can do so, and that's a kind of comical scene. It's an opportunity now to walk the path with greater awareness and be sort of entrust yourself that what is necessary will come to you,
Yeah.
that life will bring you the answers. It's not like,
And
oh, well, life will bring me the answers, so I don't really have to pay attention, and then, I'll just watch
yes,
some more
it's not
TV or
quite
something.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You bring up a really good point. We think about Jupiter. Jupiter is again, as you said, an original ruler of Pisces. You just said that.
Yes, a
Yeah.
classical ruler and the great
Classical ruler.
benefic.
Yeah. So Jupiter also represents trust, faith, inspiration, higher power,
Yes.
higher energy. So the gift is in there. And that's not always easy. So I think, and don't you have Jupiter in Pisces?
I do.
Yeah, I'm not.
And I
See,
have Saturn in Aquarius.
yeah. So Jupiter and Pisces, you're kind of speaking to this. How do I surrender into this? How do I, believe and have faith and trust? And it's not passive. And I think that sometimes people talk about Pisces as if it's passive, and it is anything but passive. The inner core of the Pisces is strong. I mean, there's power there.
Yes.
And I'm always I'm a little confused by why people might consider Pisces a very passive energy, when in fact it is all the energies kind of swirling together, ready to create something that's extraordinary and powerful.
So yes, there's this experience of this, swirling, like chaos.
Yeah.
Saturn is the opportunity to identify the pattern in the chaos. Once you have the awareness, you move and flow with the awareness of a reality that exists beyond the limits of your perception. So that's the opportunity and the gift. And so Saturn's like, oh, you didn't get that one before? Well, here, let me take you on a little tour of the trip.
Right.
The whole multiverse metaphor actually really
Yeah.
proliferated during that
Yes,
passage of Saturn through Aquarius, right? We've got
it
all these
did. And
Marvel
so now,
comics
yeah,
universes.
right.
Everybody's riffing on the multiverse.
Well, but so Saturn actually, I feel like, at least for me, Saturn and Pisces, it's like helping me find the path that's my path, that's best path for me, so that I'm not scattered. You were just talking about like being scattered isn't necessarily helpful. Being open to possibility is helpful.
Obviously, being splintered in your experience of reality, there's some
Not so good.
deep suffering that can happen
Yes,
there.
that is true.
So one of the challenges and gifts of Saturn in Pisces is that you're moving through a reality, and there are things coming from beyond your perception and coming into your perception, right? But
Yeah.
it's not to create a sense of derealization or a, fragmentation of the self. And you mentioned it earlier, Denise, so there's this opportunity to connect more deeply with your interior orientation, having
Exactly.
your sense of direction not come from the
Yes.
instruments,
No.
not come from necessarily being able to see the stars.
Right.
Things are not entirely clear for the external perception, but there's an
But
opportunity to connect with the internal
internal,
perception in a way
yes.
where that internal compass, internal guidance, internal awareness can be a tool for navigation
Yes.
and
That is
also
so
lead
true.
into a deeper and richer experience, not only of your inner world, but
Yes.
the outer world.
Yes.
A good illness will do that for you. You get really sick and feel like
Yeah.
crap.
Yeah.
And then when you come back to life, right, when you come back to homeostasis or health or however we want to define this, life is a little, wow, you really appreciate,
That's
uh,
true. Or an
the taste of a
injury.
glass of water
Same.
or, a
Yeah,
sunny day or whatever it
it's
might be.
true. And we've
And
all experienced that.
Yeah. So there's healing opportunity.
Yes.
And, right, we can have a rich conversation about what is healing. Healing in its Indo-European linguistic roots
Hmm.
comes from the notion of making whole.
Right.
So it doesn't mean I am never sick, I don't die, I live forever,
Hmm.
right? But whatever
Hmm.
my experience is, it
Hmm.
is an experience of wholeness. And
Exactly.
sometimes there is a fragmentation, a splintering that needs to happen in order for things to organize themselves into a greater coherence, a
Yes.
deeper, richer wholeness. These are some of the gifts
Mm-hmm.
in the Pandora's box of
Hmm.
Saturn and Pisces. Saturn's curious. It's going to open the lid, see what's in there. Is what's inside the box any different from what's outside the box? We're going to have to look inside and find out.
Exactly. That is
Or
exactly
you
right.
can zone out, watch television, distract yourself in any number of ways. That's always a possibility that's available for people. But I think the people who are drawn to your work are seeking something
Yeah,
a
and also
little
too,
more alive than that.
with Saturn in Pisces, there's actually probably less of a call toward that. Neptune in Pisces is having its own. I mean, there's a richness in going deep in meditation. There's a richness in. There's so much beauty when we stop and like you just like look at a piece of grass on the ground. The level of sensitivity of Pisces is so
Yes.
vast that you can just take it in, and Saturn's going to help us find the way to do that. I feel like many ways, I'm sure, but that to remind us that we can in fact have that richness and that experience. This phrase, being present, sometimes phrases get overused. Like,
Yes.
what does that mean to be present? What does that mean, and so each of us needs to define that for ourselves. But for me, being present is stopping, listening, and opening. And this green that's in front of me, how do I feel? What do I notice? What do I hear? Colors
Yes.
might have sounds. It may sound like, there's a substance involved, but there isn't one. It's just how I'm designed. And it's how most of us who are sensitive are designed, honestly, to be able to do this. And that's the beauty of this earth, right? There's a million places we could go with this conversation, but I do want to just make sure we leave time for you to answer a very direct question from some of the emails we've received. Do you offer human to human relationship sessions with the work that you do? And or do you offer individual sessions not related to relationship? So those were the
Yes.
two questions.
These questions are coming up. We did the
Mhm.
animal human
Mhm.
relationship
Yeah, which
alchemy.
is amazing.
And that's another term that's very much appropriate for this Saturn in
Mm.
Pisces
Yes.
passage
Mhm.
is an alchemical journey.
Right.
So the alchemist, would with precision
Mhm.
of attention would navigate a transformational journey.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it can be entirely an interior journey of knowing myself
Mhm.
in deeper and richer way, becoming a connoisseur of your own lived experience,
Mhm.
right? It's
Yeah.
not just something that's happening to you that you can kind of remember and recount the history
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
something, but you're actually vividly alive in the moment-to-moment unfoldment of your experience.
Mhm.
So there are
Yeah.
tools for that.
Right.
Obviously, astrology can be a tool to help,
Mhm.
navigate and have a deeper appreciation and a richer experience of
Mhm.
your life. Western astrology is based in Greco-Roman primarily, and now with the expansion of astrology as a kind of global phenomenon, there are
Mhm.
archetypes coming from cultures all over the planet. One can learn more about one's inner life but then in the relational realm, the interpersonal, right? So there's the
Yes.
intrapersonal and then the
Right.
interpersonal realm of relationship. Relationship first with oneself and
Mhm.
relationship with the other. That other can be a human or non-human
Mhm.
other, right? We have
Absolutely.
very,
Yeah.
very intimate and profound relationships with animals.
Mhm.
They influence us in remarkable ways.
Definitely.
And then also, of course, in the interpersonal realm, there's not just one's beloved or,
Mhm.
close, intimate fellows, but there's also children,
Mhm.
family members,
Mhm.
etc. So there are ways to map this, obviously, with Western astrology. And then
Mhm.
the approach that I use is based in East Asian, primarily Chinese,
Mhm.
understanding of both natal and prenatal influences. So
Right.
yes, I don't just work with human and animal relationships.
Right. Which is
Human
great. Yeah.
relationships are, yeah, absolutely. Relationships are our deepest challenge at times and
Mhm.
also greatest teachers.
Mhm.
But it's always important to approach relationships from an awareness and an understanding of self. If we're not attuned to the flow of life as we experience it within ourselves,
Mhm.
it's very difficult to grasp the what's unfolding
Mhm.
in the flow of life as it's channeling through two or more
Yes.
people, right?
Mhm.
So if you're a parent and wanting to have a greater understanding and deeper honoring of your children, and particularly where there are maybe challenges in the relationship, it's a very, very useful tool.
Mhm. Yeah.
And of course, navigating adult interpersonal relationships, difficulties arise when we forget what we know, right?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
And often in our, sometimes more challenging moments, we come back to
Mhm.
an awareness of self that allows
Yes.
for greater compassion, deeper intimacy,
Yes.
strengthening of the connection
Yes.
between us. So,
Absolutely.
absolutely, yes, I do have support available for people who are seeking a greater understanding, either again, of their relationship, deeper relationship with self,
Mhm.
or a stronger connection with others, family
Okay.
members, or intimates. People have personal questions. They wonder if
Mhm.
it really can apply to their circumstance or their
Mhm. Mhm.
relationship.
Yes. Yes.
So, what I'd like to do, Denise, is have available for folks, to you all, present here and also listening to the recording, a 20-minute free consultation just to have a talk about what your needs are, what you're seeking to have more awareness of in terms of relationship. So, we'll include that link.
Thank you, because I do think, what I kept coming back around to over and over and over again, just through myself was, this idea of compassion and starting
Yes.
with compassion for self. I'm weaving together all of these pieces to get to that interpretation. But every time I tune in, it's like where we need to start is within our own matrix, within our own energy system, with understanding that there are times when we have to find that deeper message of compassion for this being, this soul, this body that incarnated onto this earth at this time. I mean, think about it. I want everyone here to just like put your hand, well, you don't have to, but invite you to put your hand on your heart and
Absolutely.
just say, thank you for coming. This has been really weird. Like, what did you think that the life was going to unfold this way? And in many ways it's beautiful and amazing, but in other ways it has just been beyond what we could have ever imagined. So thank yourself for being here. And
Yes, and
and
really take a moment to just sense and feel with your hand your own
mm,
heartbeat,
yeah.
your own aliveness.
Mm, mm,
And in a sense, the awareness that, to use that 0 point analogy,
mhm, mhm.
this is like ground zero. This is
Yeah.
the center of the universe.
Mhm,
You are the center of the universe. And obviously that's a paradox because there's more than one person, you
Yeah.
know, speaking and listening and reflecting and sensing and feeling.
Mhm.
And this is not a narcissistic notion that, you know, you're the center of the universe. But
Yeah.
in essence, it's an honoring of the reality that
Mhm.
as the lived perceiver, as
Mhm.
a living, breathing, conscious human being,
Mhm.
reality is rooted, anchored in this present moment, in this now, with
Mhm.
your next breath, your
Yeah.
present moment of awareness. And if
Definitely.
you need any
Whew.
other meditation, you know, that could just be your meditation.
I know, right?
And in
That's
essence,
right.
all meditations
Yeah.
root down into that
Thank
presence
you. Thank you for
being.
that. So David, I don't know if you can see the chat, but I wanted to read what Kathy said before she had to drop off. Thank you, Mahalo, David and Denise, for your generosity and compassion for bringing all these magical and deeply insightful, intuitive messages forward. I'm grateful for the very big spiritual sandwich you delivered today. I will enjoy chewing on it in gentle Hawaii, visiting my little sis, sending aloha to you both and all who are gathered here today. And thank you. She can't hear us, but thank you, Kathy. And
Mahalo nui
then,
loa.
yes, that's the question. How can I cultivate more awareness? What tools am I using to help these mists part or open? How am
Or
I?
perhaps it's about enjoying the
Oh,
journey
yeah, he says,
through the
Mr.
mist.
Jupiter and Pisces. That's a good point. Enjoying the mist.
Yeah.
Of course, I agree with you. There is
Yes.
being present. And again, as I
Mhm.
said, what does that mean for each of us? So I like to propose the questions. The questions really ask us to go a little bit deeper. And I do appreciate that about your work as well. When David delivers a session, there's a lot of information, as you can probably imagine. There's a lot of information, but there's embodiment practices that go along with each session.
Yes.
The medical Qigong is definitely woven into the sessions, as well as questions, inquiry, deep inquiry. So
And
just,
understanding the unique individual energy
right,
matrix. Or if it's a
exactly,
relationship, how does your energy matrix interact with the other person's? What are the
exactly.
dynamics of that
Mhm.
engagement?
People know you for your amazing ability to give us profound information. David, you are equally as devoted to embodying, literally, like, how is the body doing with this
Yes.
experience on this planet, um very powerfully. So thank you for that. We're kind of centered here on the West Coast, but I know that there's a lot going on all over the place. So please be well. And thank you all. And thank you, David, for coming on and being with me in this conversation today. All right, everyone.
Such a pleasure.
Mwah! We'll see you soon.